So I tracked down every cave in our KvK Heroic Anthem, and here are the results. First, there were 167 total chests, and it was pretty well balanced actually. It was a little heavy on greens, but not nearly as much as I was expecting. Next, I'm going to post on the screen here what the distribution was roughly. Zone 4 by far has the most, and then it kind of evens out in Zone 5 and Zone 6, which makes sense because those are the more traditional combat zones. So you want fewer things blocking teleports, blocking flags. Of course, Kingsland had the fewest for the same reason. Overall, the rewards were really solid. The best rewards were probably the purple, which seems pretty obvious. But per chest, honestly, the rewards for the greens weren't bad either for the fact that they were greens. And then I'm going to post the total rewards on screen now for you to take a look. And really, there was a lot of good rewards, a lot of AP, and just, it's well worth the effort if you can get it done. So here's a cool little tip that you can use Joan Prime for. And it's kind of silly. You can actually use Joan Prime to chain Kahars. You can do this with any commander who has AoE, but I find it particularly humorous to do this with Joan Prime just because she's a relatively new commander, so it makes it even more fun to do. But as you can see, I get aggro, and all I gotta do is position myself so that when my skill goes off, the skill will hit the Kahar. And I actually managed to pick up a Barb here too. But the actual benefit here is obviously you can save a ton of AP because it costs 200 AP to attack a Kahar. So now I just saved 200 AP, and if I could chain it into 4 or 5, I could save 1,000 AP, and then over time save thousands of AP that I can then use on Barbs. So you can use this with any AoE character. Just make sure you position yourself wherever the AoE is going to aim to hit the other boss, and it'll save you a ton of AP and give you a lot better rewards. Here are some simple early Bastion tricks to help maximize your crystal usage early on. First, spread out your efforts between as many Bastions as you can get. Each level gives the same incremental gain, which means going from level 4 to level 5 is the same as going from level 1 to level 2. Of course, going from level 1 to level 2 is a lot easier. So if you have 4 Bastions and you get all of them to level 3, it'd be the same as taking one Bastion from level 1 all the way to level 9. And that is a lot harder to do in one day. Actually, it's pretty much impossible. Second, when you go to do your crystal mine, initially, you want to set it up just so that it's up long enough that you're going to be away. So let's say I'm going to be away for 16 hours. I'm set up well in this because now I'm set for 16 hours and some change. Whereas if I set it up to run for a day and 8 hours and I'm going to be only away for 12, it's wasted time, whereas I could use those crystals on tech. Okay, so if you're like me, this has probably happened to you several times. We're going to look at, I have my example set equipped. I go to switch over to a different commander so I can use that gear. So I'll switch, and lo and behold, my example gear is completely cleared. This is because your active gear sheet is what's based off of. So, in the case that you have to switch, here's what you need to do. Go to a loadout that's blank. Switch that loadout, and then what that'll do is automatically unequip everything. So then when you go to equip, you're all set. Still have your garrison set here, still have your garrison set here. And going back, so example, switch to blank, and switch to garrison. It's just that simple, have them both that way. But it's just a little workaround, and it makes things a little bit easier on you. Here's a quick tip to make your title givers love you. If you've ever put in for a title, you know that you have a 10-second delay between when you put your city link on and when you actually can request the title. So here's a way around that. First, we're going to go to the star marker. And what this is a custom marker. So I'm going to put whatever title I want here. And I could even put symbols or whatever else I need. So I'll put that in a custom marker. Once I have the custom marker, all I have to do is go to the special markers tab and share this link. And what it'll do is it'll show up as my name, the title I'm looking for, and then the link. When I click the link, it'll link me to my city, and it'll save your title givers a lot of time, headache, and it'll just make them more efficient and make your time quicker too. As you reach the end of a KvK, you may find yourself with some extra season coins. Most of the time you will. Here's why I generally hold on to those. Most things in between KvK are not the most urgent in the world. Whereas once you get to KvK, you may have a more urgent need. And you may have better value. So if I hadn't bought all these gold heads, would I want to buy one now at 10,000 or would I want to buy two later at 5,000? And of course, you're always going to have more coins. So even if you buy them now, it's not a big deal. But I like to save more for later because then if I need equipment materials, I can instead spend it on that. If I need a specific blueprint, I can spend it then. If I need anything, I can spend it later and I have more flexibility. So I always hold on to a little bit of season coins just so at the start of the next KvK I can get a nice jump start on building up whatever I need at that moment. Here are some Karuak tips. First, if you're hitting that pesky ceiling of 10 maximum attacks, consider taking your AoE support buffers like Trajan and Mulan and having them attack a nearby barbarian like you would for arms training. This allows you to get the AoE support buffs to your allies without having to use up an attack chance, and it frees up another march to attack the boss with damage rather than support. Second, if you want your tank march to sponge all the enemy attacks at once, you'll want to place them between the first enemy you're going to attack and all the other enemies. What all the other enemies will do once you attack the first march is attack the nearest march, which will be your tank march. And you can then send your second march to attack right after your first if you have a second tanky march, because then if for some reason your tank march dies, the first march will automatically attack the second march that attacked them, which will then attack your next tankiest march, allowing your damage dealers to continue going crazy and help increase your chance of success. So this is a KvK question I get really often, and I'm excited to finally be able to answer it. Which is better, barbarians or forts? So there's two ways of looking at it. When you look at it in terms of AP efficiency, so how much AP it takes to get one honor point. Barbarians give you 10 to 20 honor points for 80 AP, and forts give you 30 to 100 for 300 AP. This means lower level barbarians are better than the level 11 forts, but everything after that becomes better for the forts. The second way of looking at it is crystals per AP used. And in this respect, barbarians and forts is pretty much the same. Forts are better on average. You get 8 to 12 crystals per AP used versus 5 to 7.5 per AP used on barbarians. In addition, using the forts also gives you the chests for your alliance, which also helps build that up. So overall, forts are better, barbarians are just a little bit faster. Here are some quick healing tips to recover faster. Heal in 90-minute bursts. Your Alliance Center can reduce 1% of a healing queue or 3 minutes, depending on which is larger. So with the maxed out Alliance Center, you can reduce a minimum of 90 minutes of healing. You can do this batch healing up to 20-30 times a day to your daily limit, which can give you an extra 60,000 T5 units, or even more if you use a rune or other buff. So use this tactic to your advantage. Second, heal in 1.4 to 1.5 times the time you're going to be away. Since your Alliance Center will remove 30% of the healing time, scheduling for 1.5 times the time you're going to be away will reduce it to just over the amount of time you're going to be away, which will save you precious speed-ups and allow you to do this over and over again each time you step away. Lastly, only use speed-ups if you're going to continue fighting, but save them if not. It's really easy just to burn your speed-ups, but be patient. The time between fights is just as important as the time while you're fighting, so make sure to make the most of it by using the majority of it to improve at little or no self-cost. At worst, if combat comes sooner than expected, just use speed-ups then, but save them until absolutely necessary. Here's a quick breakdown of runes and altars. For those who are new to runes and altars, here are a few tips and basic mechanics. First, the biggest thing is you do not have to control the territory next to runes or altars to control them. This is because in many cases they're only accessible via a pass that only allows one march through. The second thing to remember in those cases is that you only have one march to use inside the rune or altar area at any one time. Because of this, you'll have to be careful when and where your march is positioned, as this is unforgiving in some cases. Because of this, you may consider letting a march that you would usually save be fully defeated to let a fresh march in quicker. And this is an extremely common tactic for altars and ruins, following these rule sets. Like we discussed in our Field Fight Academy series, you want to establish a forward screen, so the enemies will have to fight past you to reach the objective, and focus heavily on staying close together to protect both yourself and your allies. To capture the altar or ruin, defeat all the guardians and remove anybody not in your alliance or coalition from the area, after which you'll officially secure it in those sweet, sweet honor points. Here are 3 tips to remember as you enter Zone 5. First, check all the markers and mails when you come online. The reality is the game state is a constant change, and even if there isn't any fighting at the exact moment you log on, it could burst out at any moment, whether it be a scheduled or unscheduled counterattack or advance. Checking the markers and mails is short and easy to do, and checking them will make both yourself and your R4 extremely thankful that you did, as sometimes one person can sway the balance of a fight. Second, before you teleport out, check to make sure you are actually teleporting on Alliance territory. In the Lost Kingdom, your city is safe on Alliance territory, but nowhere else. so even though it's using a Conquest KvKs, you can teleport onto Coalition territory. If you do, you will be able to be attacked and even rallied. Take the time to double check, you'll save yourself and your kingdom a ton of headache. Lastly, on the territory issue, be sure to bubble if you're going offline. Territory moves back and forth in the Lost Kingdom, so a safe position can become unsafe in just a few hours. So if you're going to be away, bubble up and protect yourself, especially in Zone 5. Better safe than zeroed. Here's some quick rallying garrison tricks to help you win more battles. First, match troop types. This can be done by checking the garrison lead or the marker at the top of a garrison rally. Take the time and find out what the troop is. Sending the wrong troop type to a garrison rally could cause massive damage and issues into most of the meta commanders, as they depend on one specific troop type and only that troop type. So be careful when sending troops. Check for markers as well if you're still unsure, or just ask someone in chat just to be safe. Swap in fresh troops for sustained rallies and defenses. Keeping them full is crucial. You'll see better trades and increase your chances of winning control of an area. For garrisons, you can have multiple marches and buildings, but for rallies, you'll have to pull the old troop and put a new one in. You can do this from the rally menu by hitting the little arrow on your name. Protect the field. Without the field, a rally or garrison is much less likely to succeed. Without field support, rallies and garrisons don't get reinforced, while the enemy rally and garrison does, creating a huge disadvantage and lowering your chance of success. So sometimes the best thing you could do is to support the field. Help establish a foothold and keep up the lane to the rally or garrison open and uncontested so your kingdom can do its work. Here's some little tips to help improve your combat experience. First, you can't bubble when allies in your city. So if there are any allies in your city, check your alliance center and you can kick them from there. Try not to kick them when enemies are around though, because your ally will get swarmed. Second, you can use a rally trigger by sending a troop of just one troop, like a fast march, to your rally from a large distance like 20 plus minutes away. This takes some coordination, but in the case that you can pull this off, all the rally leader needs to do is kick the one troop march away from the rally, and then you can have your rally leave the instant you kick them. This is useful if you want to double rally something with an ally, as you can make sure that they hit simultaneously. Lastly, you can track a pesky city by launching an 8-hour rally on them with just one troop, and you'll be able to keep tabs on their city's location for the next 8 hours. Just remember not to use any important commanders when you do this, and to cancel it before it leaves your city. Here's a quick reinforcement tip for the front line. Let's say that this Alliance Center Fortress is sitting on the front line. One of the things you can do to help maximize your defensive capability is placing an Alliance resource node, whether it's a mother node or a stone node or whatever resource type you want to use. And you're just going to place it right next to it. These buildings, once completed, have unlimited capacity for the number of people that can be in it, theoretically, although you're only limited to one person at a time. So it'll be like a city, but with much, much greater capacity. So then you can constantly feed troops from your placed resource center into the fortress over and over and over again. And you can keep the chain going all the way up to the fortress as you go. And this is a really safe way too, because unlike a flag, this can't be attacked. So until your fortress falls, the gold node's going to be safe. This is city chaining, and it's one of the tactics that you can use to defend a building without having to walk across an enemy field presence to do so. So there's a simple way to do it. First, you want to get your troops as close as you can, city-wise, between each other. You want to get these up as close as you can, because there's less time that you're marching between cities. Once you do that, you're able to hop city to city without being able to be targeted all the way up to the garrison. This means you'll want to get as close to the garrison as you can, too, with one of the cities. The last thing to remember as well is, at some point in the city chain, you'll want to establish a jog. So this jog is here so that you can jump your troops around, because you only have one troop in a city at any one time. So your returning troop from the front can jump to this jog city while the other one's coming forward to reinforce the building. And this will just make sure you have a steady stream of reinforcements for you and your allies, and it'll just make it incredibly frustrating for your enemy. Here are 3 ways to help your kingdom in KvK without spending a single dime on tech. First, we have building support marches. And support marches are unique in the aspect of it doesn't matter what you have geared tech-wise. You provide the same amount of support whether you're wearing full legendary armor or none. Your survivability may change, but the buffs you provide to allies and the debuffs to enemies do not. So it's a safe investment for free-to-play players or players who are just not high spenders in general. Second, we have garrison fills and rally fills. Garrisons and rallies give you a chance to contribute to your alliance without having to invest in tech, because the trade is completely dependent on the garrison and rally leader. So you get to contribute without having to spend money like you're contributing super heavily. Lastly is honor point farming. Honor point farming is a very underrated aspect, and it helps your kingdom because you get better rewards for yourself and for your allies. So farm your. Here are some tips for prospective garrison leaders. First, know when to swap out. Generally speaking, below 70,000 troops, you tend to get much weaker trades, since a lot of the trades go through your main garrison lead. So once you reach the 1/3 mark without troop expansion, consider having somebody swap in temporarily while you refresh. Do not leave the garrison without a viable leader, however, especially when the enemy is in the area. On the swapping note, be sure to have a backup garrison available. This allows you to refresh either mid-fight or after the rally to get fresh garrison troops ready to trade at full strength until you get back. This person doesn't need as strong as gear, just something to hold on until you can get back with your main garrison. Lastly, don't be afraid to switch up troop types. No one garrison will work for every situation, so if your garrison pair isn't working, swap them out for a different garrison pair, or even a different troop type pair. At a minimum, it'll force the enemy to switch up tactics and buy yourself some much needed time to regroup. So here's why garrison swapping is so important. One of the main aspects of a garrison, and the main advantage it has over rallies, is the fact that you can swap the leader in the middle of fighting. This is, of course, means you can actually get a fresh march that's fully strengthened and make it the leader, and it can trade as if it's a fully strengthened march, whereas a march at 60,000 troops has a lower effective trading ability. So using this to your advantage, you need to be swapping garrisons. So in this case, you'll see that it wasn't very well reinforced and we never swapped the garrison, and it's a clear loss. However, when you go on to a report that it has a garrison swap, you'll find that the trades are much, much more in favor of the defense. So when you can't always have two garrison leads and swap them back and forth once they get below 60,000 troops. Here's a real-life tactic you can use in Rise of Kingdoms. Fabian tactics refers to Consul Fabius, of shattering the enemy Carthaginian army and preventing them from being able to comfortably forage from the land and forcing them to depend on their supply lines, while also avoiding contact and trying to force them into an unfavorable confrontation. Similarly, we're going to do this in Rise of Kingdoms. If you get trapped in your Zone 4, one tactic you employ to help strain the enemy, even without territory, is farm hunting. You can do this from the safety of your own Zone 4. If you use cow with investment into mobility and expertise windswept, you can only be chased down by another cow. When hunting, hop from gathering point to gathering point, as each one will give you a speed boost due to your talents. Try to stay mobile and don't stay in a node for more than a few seconds, whether you're being chased or not. And try not to get bogged down by heavily reinforced gathering points, as if the enemy finds you, you'll have to turn and move. Don't be afraid to circle back around if you're feeling particularly brave. You can always come back and finish off the enemy node. When hunting, try to look for several points ahead and try to plan your hopping path so that you're not outside of a gathering point for more than 10 seconds. If you can keep your jump shorter than that, you'll essentially have the speed boost the whole time. Happy hunting! Here are a couple quality of life combat tips. First, before you teleport to or from the front, check your alliance center for reinforcements. First, if you teleport away, you're going to take that march several hundred kilometers away, and that's just going to be really inconvenient for you and really inconvenient for the other person. And also, you're going to be vulnerable to rallies, because you cannot bubble if you have somebody in your city. So just check them before you move. It takes 2 seconds, and it'll save you a ton of headache. Second, make sure that if you want to time a rally, you can join it from really far away, 200 kilometers away. Say this is a city rally. I'll join it with one troop so that when I join it, it actually slows down the rally. And then the second you're ready to launch the rally, all you have to do is kick that one troop. And then you'll have a march with 2.399999 million troops. And you basically get full effectiveness while being able to time your rally exactly.